let's look at some percent questions. So here's our first two questions. When we're faced with percent questions, there's a couple different ways to go about solving. My favorite is to use a percent formula. So the formula that I like to use looks like this. It starts out with two fractions and an equal sign in the middle. Always put 100 in the bottom right corner. Now the way this works is you look in the question and you have is and you have of, and usually you have a percent in a percent question, and you have 100. So what we're liking is a portion fraction to a whole fraction. So for example, 100% is the whole thing. So some percentage of 100 is representing some piece of some whole. So for example, if we read number 1, we have 15 is what percent of 150. So if we start with our fractions, it always starts with this. You always have 100 in the bottom corner. Before you even read the question, you know that you have this much as the setup, and then we can start filling in the different pieces. So we have 15 is, well, there we go. There's our first key word. Our first key word from right here is, and here it is. So 15 is. So 15 goes where we see the is. What percent? Well, there's our next key piece. There's our percent from right here. What percent? Well, we don't know, so that's the x. And here's our last key word, of. Of is our final piece down here, and it says of 150. So let's read it again and make sure we have everything in the right spots. 15 is, there we go, what percent, what represents the x, of 150. There we go. So now, in order to solve, we can cross multiply. When you cross multiply, you draw a big X through your question like this, and you multiply the pieces that are on the end of the same line. So for example, this line right here has 15 on one end, 100 on the other. So that means we have 15 times 100 equals, this line right here has 150 and X. So 150 X. Now we can multiply this together. So we have 1500 equals 150x. Then just like we've been doing, we want to get x by itself, so we divide by 150, divide by 150, and we're left with x equals 10. So what does that mean? Well, that means that 15 is 10% of 150. Let's throw a percent on there so that we have our units. All right, let's try again. For number 2, before we even look at the question, we know this much right here. There we go. Now let's see if we can figure out what goes in each blank. What is? Well, there's our keyword is. It says what is. So that means our x, that's the piece we don't know, is going to go for our is. 35%, there's that percent. So here's our 35. Of, there's our keyword, 40. So 40 goes down here where we see the of in our equation. Cross multiply. So that means we have 40 times 35 equaling 100x. So let's read it through. Let's make sure that we have everything figured out and everything in the right spot. So if we double check, we have what is, there we go, 35% of 40. Cross multiply, 40 times 35, that gives us 1400. 100x, so that gives us 100x. We want to solve for x, so we divide by 100. Divide by 100. Easy way of dividing by 100 is cancel out the zeros, so we get x equals 14. So what that means is 14 is 35% of 40. Let's try again. We'll keep our formula because we need that part. Number 3. 35 is 50% of what? So we can set it up. We know 100 goes in the corner. Now let's see if we can figure it out. So it says 35 is. So 35 goes where the is 50%. So 50% goes where we see our percent right here in our formula. Of what? Well, that means we don't know. So there we go. That's going to be our x. So if we cross multiply, so we have x times 50, so that's 50x. We have 35 times 100. So we have 50x equals 3,500, which means x equals 70. So 35 is 50% of 70. Let's try one more. 25 is what percent of 20? So let's set this one up. 100 always goes in the bottom. All right, let's read it down through. 25 is, so 25 goes here. What percent? So we don't know the percent of 20. Now think about this one for a second. 25 as a percentage of 20. Well, 25 is more than 20, so we should expect it to be more than 100. So just keep that in the back of your mind while you're solving down so that you can check and make sure that you're on the right track. So let's do our cross multiply. So now we have 100 times 25 equals 20 times x. 25 times 100 is 2,500 equals 20x. And then just like we've been doing, if we divide both sides by 20, that means x equals 125. And we're looking for a percent, so let's put our percent on there. So that means 25 is 125% of 20. So using our is over of equals percent over 100 formula is a great way to solve different questions when you're looking for types of percent.